way in which we do mobilizations. So pretty much if we take this looking as the joint, we look at the center point, all right, and then we have an XYZ axis, we're looking at the Y axis, the X axis, and the two Z axes are rotational components. And so when we're looking at a joint, we're moving it around to see if it has equal play or the same amount of play that it should throughout. What happens is we find a restriction and we say, ooh, that's restricted. And the thing that we traditionally do in therapy, direct method, is that we say, ooh, it's restricted that way, and we continue to force it that way. Now, one of the things that I always do when I go to colleges and universities, and even in my courses, is I say, how many of you have ever tried to take the joint mob into the best way and see what it does? In other words, have you ever, instead of mobbing into the most restricted, have you ever tried to mob into the least restricted to see what it would do to that most restricted position? So that's one thing that I ask you. Go ahead and try that next time you have a patient. Is it mob into, find the bad position where it doesn't want to go, and mob into the good position. All right, now the other thing you can start doing is mob to the other side. All right, and see what it does. So if it's restricted AP, come over here and do an AP and see what it does. All right, the other thing is you can take your hips too and do, you know, most people look at the injured joint. They don't go to the other sides, all right, and the other opposites. And so what I'm saying is, what happens if you were to do a mob to the hip? What would it do to your shoulder? This is what I show a lot in the courses, and it's very fascinating. It's what connects people. But let's go back to the full body joint mob. If we look at this as a body and think of the joint, the body as a joint, the center point is our center of gravity. And what this nicely draws out is that these diagonals are your legs, your arms. Alright, we'll put a little head up here, just so you get the idea. And so what we have here is the y-axis splits us into left side versus right side. The x-axis divides us into top versus bottom. And the z-axis takes us into rotations. Alright, so that's why the P&F patterns work, or when they work, is the person has been problematic in a rotational component. And it helps out on one situation. But rotation is such an important component, and it's used in almost every motion, and that's why P&F can be so powerful. Now, right versus left stuff can also help out, and top versus bottom. But what we have to do is we have to look at the joint and see where it has gotten out of balance. And if we take something and we say, okay, it has gotten out of balance and now it's being weighted this way. Now I explained why something gets out of balance and kept out of balance, but again, that's for a later time. But if I get this center balance that is out of whack over here, all right, there's a couple ways to bring it back. All right, I can do a little opposite hip, okay, opposite leg, all right, and then do a little bit of more arms. And the prime example of this is, think about a dog that has been injured its back right leg. It picks up the right leg and stops using it. We have said, oh, why does the back leg heal? And we go, it's because the leg is no longer being used. It's being healed like that. The thing is, we miss a bigger part of the picture too, is that the other three extremities are working more. All right, so with that said, the leg that's not working and the other three that are working more appear to play a bigger part in the whole healing process. So we're there, this is the back leg that's not working. We are going to use the opposite leg more and the two arms more, and look what that does. That brings it back into the center point. Okay, now, if it happens to be a wonderful, smooth, absolutely easy problem, we might be able to use a P&F pattern to bring it back right into the center point and heal them up instantly. All right, so it depends on what's occurring and how quickly we can get it back. And so sometimes we use the opposite leg and both arms. All right, so somebody else might have a shoulder injury up here, okay, And we might use the opposite shoulder to get it, and some leg stuff to bring it back into center. And this is what total motion release is. And it's probably one of the few exercises, techniques that is designed for the patient to be able to do on their own, assess and treat, and to be able to understand this is what's occurring. And it's all due to balance. Balance of that joint, being able to have free play. Our joint just happens to be the center point in the free play for the whole body, for the arms and the body to move in a congruent way in which it should. Okay? So it's not too far-fetched from what you've already been doing. It's just we're not in a localized area. We're looking at the body as a global. All right? Thank you.